Welcome everyone to Taking a Break with Gen X Jace and Boomer 2. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. I've been doing a lot of talking about politics. I'm ready to sit down and talk about shit that's just kind of fun or interesting. I mean, a lot of people don't understand. They hear me talk about politics all the time, but I'm kind of a goofy fuck. I know a lot about trivia. I'm into music. I'm into movies and all this stuff. So the chance to sit with another fucking goofball, another balding goofball like myself, is kind of like a break. So that's why we call it taking a break.
I don't know who you're calling balding, man. I'm already bald. There ain't no balding to it. I mean, it's fucking gone, dude. It's like the horse out of the barn. We're recording on a Saturday afternoon and I just heard on over these broke over people broke and people on TMC broke it. Diane Keaton just passed away
Oh,
at
wow.
79 years old. Kind of like Redford, didn't know she was sick. Didn't Great actress. I mean, she to me, she'll always be Kate from The Godfather
Yeah.
because Godfather is my favorite movie. One and two are I consider them one movie. And the third one gets a lot of hate, but I don't think it's that bad. They gave Francis Ford Coppola, his daughter, a bunch of crap. She wasn't that bad. It's just people like to hate. But I always remember her. If you ever notice about Kate, there's always a theme with her. There's always a door closing on her. Like in the first one, after Michael takes over and pretty much wipes his enemies out during the christening. They're talking this, and I think it was Talia Shire. You killed, I guess, her husband, the one that used to beat the shit out of her. Oh, now
Right,
she's sad
right.
about it. And so they took care of him. And actually, there's another story about him. He is still alive. That guy that played that, he's got a show. He's got a podcast called, I think it's Hollywood Godfather. Pretty interesting stuff. He talks a lot of shit and about a lot of stuff. I don't know if it's true, but you ought to check him out. He's pretty, I read his book too, but he's kind of that guy that he's kind of like, he just kind of believes his own hype. And he says that when James Caan was beating him up, he was beating him up. And so get back to it. Well, Michael wipes all his enemies, and then Tyler Shire, you killed my husband and whatever. And Kate asks him, Michael, did you do this? And he goes, no, Kate, of course, and so they're meeting with he's meeting with all his men, and they close the door on her. She's looking in. And spoiler alert, she tells Michael down the road that she had an abortion because she didn't want to, give him an heir.
Right.
And he never had a male heir. It was his daughter. And well, actually, he did have a male heir, but he wasn't into the business. That's right. He was just like his dad. I take that back. But and there's a time where she tries to come and see the kids, and he won't let her. So you see another closing on her. So that was always the theme of Kate. She always got the door closed on her. And talk about taking her for granted. He runs to Italy, marries another gorgeous girl. She gets killed. He comes back. Well, I'll go back to Kate, after he left, and she gets in the car with him. So it was a sad, kind of a sad thing. And the third one, I always liked it because she had the upper hand. Michael was getting, feeling bad because he was sick, and he tried to get forgiveness. And of course, the Catholic Church tells him, well, you can get forgiveness if you give us a lot of money. So that's
Well,
how
of
you get.
course. That seems like the logical
But
turn of events.
he was chasing her, and she kind of is like, no, no, been there, done that. And I think the most disturbing part of The Godfather, Part Three, was George Hamilton and his tan. That really was just, it's like who does that, and why would you have George Hamilton when you could have paid Robert Duvall to come back, but they kill him off. But I do rest in peace, Kate. I mean, she got a lot of flack by sticking by Woody Harrelson and still making movies, but I mean, sometimes your friends are your friends. I mean, sometimes you know more what the media portrays us, but rest in peace, man. I mean, 79 is a good run. And it's kind of ironic because today's the 79th birthday of Daryl Hall,
Yeah.
who's I've heard is a great musician, but a real Richard. And I watched a behind the music the other day on them, and it's just God, Hall and Oates was just so great. I mean, he's a jerk, but I mean, I didn't know a guy was 79 years old, and that dude still has all his hair. He's as bad as Rod Stewart.
That's the weird thing about this. You know you're getting old when you have Robert Redford. When you were young, when I was young, handsomest guy ever, could
Oh
get
yeah,
every chick. He's now dead because he became elderly.
yeah.
Diane Keaton, kind of a hottie back in the day. Everybody kind of lusted after her. She's 79. dead. And you talk about Daryl Hall. I've heard that too. It's interesting that his original girlfriend was named Sarah, from Sarah Smile. She was a flight attendant, Las Vegas turnaround, all that kind of stuff. And I'd always understood that he was kind of a dick too. His partner Daryl Hall, John Oates, is on TikTok, and he's kind of an interesting guy. And people always think that Daryl Hall is the only one that sang and the only one that did anything. A lot of the big hits were written by John Oates, like She's Gone and
Yeah.
some other ones. He also was the lead singer on some of those songs, too. People never realized that. They just gave Daryl Hall all the credit, and John Oates was kind of the second guy, but he was as much a part of that as anything. And I grew up in the 70s, so Daryl Hall and John Oates were my favorite of all time. At first it was wimpy to like them because you had the metal and all that stuff that my friends had. But then slowly but surely people go, yeah, they're pretty fucking good. I've seen them in concert a number of times. One time they were horrible. Every other time they were great.
Yeah, they're behind the music. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Paramount Plus, they had a thing in their that they're advertising this kind of a tribute to Ozzy, and it's about his last days and the concert they did in Birmingham, England, with Metallica and all the big stars that Sabbath inspired. And I can't get myself to watch that right now. I'd probably cry like a little girl because Ozzy meant
Really?
so much. Oh yeah, I loved Ozzy. Ozzy was one of the because Ozzy was just a normal guy. He was a fucking idiot, just like me. That's why I identified so much with him. Did he worship the
Yeah.
devil? No, he just fucking sang about that shit to freak people out. It's like Halloween. That's what Sabbath was. Well, everybody except Tony, I know me. I think that guy is, something out there. But they had the behind the musics that came out in the late 90s that were
Right.
great. And I watched one on the Bengals the other day, and I watched one on Huey Lewis. And how fucking great was Huey Lewis?
He was great. Wait a minute. I want to make sure people understood what you just said. What it sounded like you said was the Bengals. You were
Bang,
talking about the Bengals, right?
Bengals and a Hoffs.
Okay, just to be clear.
Yeah. But they did something with this. I know that and if you have Paramount Plus, I mean, get that, watch behind the music because they did updates to it. They have updates, and they were talking about Daryl Hall and John Oates, and that girl that was with Daryl Hall, her sister wrote a lot of songs with them,
Yeah.
two sisters. And the sister that he was real close to both of them, and the sister, the other, not the one he was with, but her sister died of leukemia, like 37. And they
Yeah.
say that changed Daryl a lot, that he, like, their relationship was never the same. But I give John Oates his last knowledge of the bank, man. I mean, they say he's like the flunky in the band, but hell, they had his own his mustache had its own cartoon. How many fucking people can say that, man? And your fucking cartoon. Come on, man.
He had a pretty badass mustache. I'll give him that. I could never grow anything like that.
Yeah, he's like that got that wide earp thing going on. So yeah, we talked a little bit
Oh
about
yeah.
Black Sabbath and stuff, which it's how they got started it's an old Boris Karloff. They were looking for a name and they saw the movie Boris Karloff, Black Sabbath, and that's how they got it. And everybody, well, they're satanic, and it's like, you know, and a lot of these bands that went to satanic and everything, they try to give them all this credit, but Paul Stanley from Kiss one time says, well, you can hardly call somebody who falls into a creek of gold brilliant. I mean, you just fucking, hey, this scares people. It fucking sells album. Let's do it. So
I
that's
just
what.
I just want to say that I looked it up. Like the woman that went out with Daryl Hall, Sarah Allen, she was a writer too. And she dated Daryl Hall, and she was the inspiration for Sarah Smiles, Las Vegas Turnaround, and some other ones. But you're right, her sister, who they really thought of a lot of her, she wrote some songs for Hall and Oates too. At least co-wrote them with Hall and Oates. One was "Kiss on My List" and "Private Eyes."
Private Eyes.
Um, "Did It in a Minute" and "Method of Modern Love." So she did some shit.
Yeah, she was really important to them. I mean, it's like I don't know if, but it say he changed him a lot. Like their relationship didn't survive. I mean, she must have meant a lot to me. I mean, she wrote Private Eyes. My God. I mean, how iconic is Private Eyes? I mean, it's like they're watching you. I mean, that's just like in the clapping and shit. I mean, that's just great. That's just, it's called cheesy at the time, but it's like the Bee Gees, man. With age, it gets acceptable, I guess. I'm a metalhead and I love the Bee Gees. And actually, Barry Gibb, his son, is in a freaking death metal band, and
Oh, really?
he's actually played with his dad, like, well, because he's the only one left. I mean, all his brothers are gone.
Yeah.
But talking about that, talking about Halloween time, and we were talking about Black Sabbath earlier, how it's spooky season, Mike. I don't know if you've gotten it, and there's a bunch of ghost and pumpkin spice all around us right now.
There is a lot of ghost and pumpkin spice. I know my granddaughter's really into Halloween. Her mom's really into Halloween. My wife's kind of different about Halloween. She doesn't like the gross, icky stuff. She wants it just the fun and happy stuff.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to an age where things get a little creepier out there. You know, like my granddaughter will have a skeleton sitting on her dresser or something. We go, honey, do you really need that? And I say, hell yeah, she does. She needs to have whatever the hell she wants. That's my job to give her whatever she wants. But there were Halloween has become such a big deal. I mean, so much to the point that, we get people taking over empty stores for a period of 4 months just to sell Halloween products.
Yeah.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think there would be that much demand for that shit, but apparently there is.
Well, yeah, it's like I saw with the Yankees, it got eliminated by the Blue Jays, and they had like a meme. I saw a meme where they're like over Yankee Stadium putting the spirit sign, like the spirit is where they take over empty buildings, and that happens a lot too. I think Halloween is just another way for people to make money. I
Oh,
I I,
yeah.
I can remember growing up. Of course, I grew up, very religious. That everything about Halloween was supposed to be evil. Well, yeah, that's why I like it. I mean that everything I was told not to, you know, go towards, you can't like Van Halen, Kiss. I mean, you can't like that stuff. And when you tell somebody not to like something, of course they're gonna, and especially me, that I'm gonna investigate. Well, why not? Why can't I like them? And I mean, I love Halloween. I've always loved Halloween. I think as I get old, I don't dress up. I mean, in my 20s and 30s, I did. I'm 53 years old. I ain't gonna fucking dress up. I have no kids, and I'm not gonna dress my dogs up either. But I mean, I dress up as Kiss. I've dressed up as Rob Zombie. I've wore as zombies. I mean, I love zombie movies. I love ghost movies. I'm not big on gore movies, which is funny with a name like Jason. But
Yeah.
I saw those Friday the 13th movies back in the day, and I didn't go and see Jason. You know why I went to see Friday the 13th movies?
I know. Yeah.
Boobies. I mean, and you had, there's always going to be some naked girl getting her head cut off. That's why I
Yeah.
saw Friday the 13th. And I didn't like Freddy too much because he would kill them before they get naked. Jason, you got to get naked before he cut your head off.
You got to have priorities. You
Yeah,
got
man.
to have priorities. And uh, I was never really into the crazy horror movies that much. Occasionally, I would watch them. As far as dressing up for Halloween, I haven't done that in so long. So it was kind of disturbing when I was going over to see. I was watching my grandchild who's 4 months old, and I have a grandchild that's 5 months old. And my daughter-in-law says to me, uh, yeah, we're going out trick or treating. They just bought a new house. It's going to be a new neighborhood. We're going to go out trick or treating. We're going to take the kids out trick or treating. We want you to go. Cool, I'm in. And then she says, you guys should dress like animals. I go, what? You want me to dress in anything? I'm not a geek. I'm not going to dress up. But my wife explained to me, yes, you are. If they want you to dress up, you're going to dress up. So I don't know what the fuck it's going to be.
Oh,
Maybe I should just dress up like what we were talking about before. The guy who knew Joe Laurinaitis and be animal of the Road Warriors. That might be even goofier than that. So I don't know. We'll see how this works out. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do because I really don't like dressing up. It's just stupid for a 65-year-old man to do that.
you could be a 65-year-old podcaster. Oh, wait a minute. You already are. What did your kids call, your sons call you? Oh, he's a media influencer. Oh my, and they're like, oh my God, our dad's a media influencer. I mean, yeah, you can be anything. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can do anything to like. you could wear flannel and, be a grunge guy, I mean, that's what
No,
they
it's got
wore.
to be an no. That's the problem. It's got to be an animal.
Oh, it's got to be an animal. You could
That
be,
makes it all the much tougher.
you ought to be Animal from Muppets, the drummer. That's the animal I think of. That would
That
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 that would get
I
them.
I,
Oh,
I hadn't
animals.
thought
Oh,
about
that's what you said, John. Okay, duh.
John
Hello.
Laurinaitis, the wrestler. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
you
That
might
might
have a
not
hard
go
time
over
getting a
well.
mohawk like he had. That might kind of be a little bit of work, but you get a marker, I guess, and you know.
Well,
And
for me, when we were talking about music and Halloween and all that stuff. There's only one song that comes to mind for me, and it's because I'm old. And it's Bobby Pickett and the Crypt Kicker Five, and the song was "The Monster Mash." That came out before I was born, and it's played every year during Halloween all the time I was growing up. And I'm going to acquaint my granddaughter with the song if she hasn't already been acquainted with it. She'll love it because it's goofy and it's hooky and all that stuff. But
I'm,
what are you thinking about? What are
I'm
you thinking about in terms of music or movies? Movies particularly.
I'm very
Um, th-
disappointed in you, Mike. I'm very disappointed. You didn't bring up. You were in radio, and it was one of radio's biggest hits, "Werewolves in London."
oh yeah, yeah. Warren Zevon.
The Munsters theme. What is that one? I am the god of hellfire. What is that one? That was an old
I
song.
don't know. The Warren Zevon song. I will say this though. Warren Zevon, especially Werewolves of London. Did you know that was Jesse Ventura's favorite artist? And
Yes.
Wolves of London was his favorite song. And Warren Zevon, who's since passed away, played at Jesse Ventura's inauguration when he became governor of the state of Minnesota, the second dumbest election I've ever been involved in.
Uh, I don't know, man. I like Jesse Ventura. I still do because Jesse Ventura. I mean, he's like that. He talks a lot of shit, but the guy doesn't. I mean, you talk about independent. That dude's crazy on his own, and he lives his life. But I think it's sad is that most of the people when they hear that song, the music from Werewolves of London, they attribute it to Kid Rock because he did that song a few years ago called All Summer Long, which, like I said, Kid Rock's an idiot, but I do like his music. I just don't want to hear him talk. But he did that for All Summer Long, where he mixed it up, and that whole beat for Werewolves in London came out. And
See, that's what I don't understand. When you talk about people like Kanye or somebody like Kid Rock, and they come out with a song that becomes a hit, and everybody's going, "He's a genius." But they're using somebody else's music for the basis of their song. That's not a fucking genius.
nope,
That's a guy who came up with a rhythm or a rap over an already existent hit song. That's not that hard. It's not as hard as coming up with a fucking hit song. It's not genius.
I tell you what, though, I know one person that appreciates that, and that's Sting, because you know how much money P. Diddy had to pay him for that I'll be what thing where they sampled the Police song "Every Breath You Take." I mean, my
Right,
God,
right.
Sting made probably more money off that song than he did the whole career as Police. But
Oh, Walk
yeah,
This Way by Aerosmith probably made more money in the Run DMC version.
yeah, but they Aerosmith owes Run DMC a freaking gratitude for bringing them back because I remember when that song came out. I mean, this has been some years. I didn't really know Aerosmith that much. I mean, I knew that they were all rock stars, but I mean, I was more into Run DMC at that time. I was really into hip hop, but I think it had to do with the mixing that they did. But
Well, the
yeah,
video too. The video was kind of cool.
yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, I just remember seeing that video and I go, God dang, who are those old fucks? And they were like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that song is so funny is that people don't listen to the lyrics because you mean you hear what he's saying. He's talking about scoring. I mean, you ain't seen nothing till you're down on a muffin. Gee, what does that mean? Is he talking about a brand muffin? I mean, that's what rock and roll is great. And that's what I love about Aerosmith and Kiss to a point is that they don't come out and just say the fuck word. They do like, they
Double
do,
entendres or innuendos.
you
Well, they
know,
had another song that wasn't a hit that all us young guys, because we were in our teens in the early 70s, and that's when Aerosmith was kind of hitting. and they had all the great songs, Sweet Emotion and all that stuff. But there was one song that wasn't really a hit, but all of us played over and over and over again, and it was called Big 10 Inch. Now, you got
Suck
the
on.
impression they were talking about something sexual. In fact, they were talking about a record, but everything they said around it made it suggest it was the other. We love that, 14-year-old boys singing Big 10 Inch. We love that shit.
Yeah, and you also think about, you mentioned Sweet Emotion, you can't catch me because the rabbit done died. I had to ask my mom what that meant. I go, what does that mean? I was a kid, and she's probably like, "What the fuck?" And I always remember about Aerosmith too is that I remember my late grandmother. She was very sharp. They got a song called "Same Old Song and Dance," and it talks about how you're on trial and you get a judge that has constipation and his wife's aggravation. You're gonna end up dead. And they go, Why are they singing about a judge's constipation? Well, he's in a bad mood. Gonna put your ass to death. I mean, I just that's what I like. And nowadays it's fuck this, fuck that. I mean, I use the F word a lot, in case you haven't noticed, but to kind of have a mystery, it's like writing a novel, you get to it and it kind of makes you think, it's kind of like, a good horror movie as we talk about that.
Well, we should clarify for the younger folks that are listening to the show when you suggest the rabbit done died, what that means. Now, for you younger folks, I don't know specifically because I was pretty young at the time, but in the old days, like say the 60s and the 50s, they didn't have the little stick that you bought that told you whether or not you were pregnant. It was a much more archaic way to find out. And somehow it was tied to injecting a rabbit with some kind of whatever they needed. And if the rabbit died, you were pregnant. I mean, it sounds medieval, and it was kind of medieval, but it wasn't that long ago, 60s, 50s, and such. That's the way they decided and found out for sure if you were pregnant. So, just to clarify, and that's why Steven Tyler said, and the rabbit done died.
Well, if you listen to RFK Jr., I think he wants to go back to that, but that's another podcast.
Did you hear what RFK said? He said now
Well,
autism is because of early circumcision,
that
which is
explains a lot about
weird.
me.
Which is weird. Does that mean women don't get autism?
I
Wow,
don't know anymore.
we're learning so fucking much.
People ask me things I just don't know anymore. I mean, it's just the stuff that people accept and just move on from. It's just, But we're talking about Aerosmith and talking about, great movies to where they have a meaning to a movie, like a good ghost story. And I can think of two right now that came out around the same time. I love a good ghost story. I like a good mystery. And people always, they ask, well, what's your favorite ghost story of all time? Being a paranormal investigator. I mean, you watch some of the stuff now, like The Conjuring. It's about Ed and Lorraine Warren. I mean, I've heard so many bad things about them that it was just money for them, but I'm sure they saw some shit because they were kind of the first investigators. And if you don't know who I'm talking
Yeah.
about, Conjuring movies are made of. Um, one of my, I think my probably my favorite ghost story of all time, and if you haven't seen it, it's not the movie with Angela Jolene that Eastwood directed a few years ago. It's the one with 1980. It's with George C. Scott. It's called The Changeling.
Oh
It's
yeah.
about it's funny. I was when I used to work about 30 years ago, I was at a party and they were like, well, hey, what's a good ghost story? What's a good ghost story? So I, went to Blockbuster and got let them borrow the movie. And they were laughing at me at first. I'm like, what the hell? George C. Scott? Who's that? And all this stuff. I let them watch it. Came back Monday. Oh my God, Warden, what the hell did you make us watch? I mean, that is a fucked up movie, and that is and it's fucked up in a good way. It's one of those movies that it has, makes you think, and it's very sad, but it has a theme that a lot of movies follow today about ghost stories, about how, and we noticed that like when we were hunting ghosts and doing that on the show, and then that usually something tragic happened to cause, I mean, that negative energy, and to Changeling, George C. Scott aka Patton. If you haven't seen that movie, that's one I would recommend. Probably my favorite ghost story of all time.
What's the premise of it? I mean, what's scary about it?
Well, it's about a man that buys. I haven't seen it in a few years, but his wife, and he's on the payphone. Payphone, remember those? and he watches a truck like smash and kill his daughter and his wife. I mean, it's fucked up, and he has this like presence in his house that keeps doing stuff. And they found out. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's about a little boy that was killed in that house. So you know, the kid was pretty much drowned in the bathtub. So it's just how that spirit didn't there, and he ends up going through and finding out and everything. But it's just it's a ghost story, and it's a sad ghost story because that's the one thing that's always used to kind of freak me out. And I remember I used to listen to the Art Bell, and he would have these people on that did these EVPs with the electric voice phenomenon, and you would get voices of children, and it was like, and the child's like scared and stuff, and like, what kind of God, he'd always ask, lets that happen, But I mean, I'm getting kind of deep here, but it's about a little boy that was killed, and he's haunting the house, and George C. Scott, discovers what happened, just going through it. But I think it was his father or stepfather that did it. Like I said, I haven't watched it a lot of times, but I just remember that movie always gives me the chills. It's just about an uneasy spirit.
Yeah, and we've told people before, we'll tell them again that prior to doing this sort of thing, you were on a was it Netflix? It was a Netflix
Uh, Playboy Channel. No, it was actually Discovery. It was Discovery.
Discovery.
Discovery Channel was a show called Ghost Lab. There were two seasons of it. I was on the first one, and I wasn't really a main character because uh, but I would go on and off a few episodes. And second season, they actually had to leave, and they all quit their jobs. Well, I wasn't doing that, so but you don't pay that much. But yeah, there's two seasons on it, and I think you can get it's on YouTube a lot, and I think Amazon, and of course it was on DVD. But yeah, Mike Rowe, who does Dirty Jobs, and I think Ford commercials, he's the one that narrated it. So it's kind of a trip, man, when you're sitting there and you're being talked about. Well, Jason found this. Like, oh man, that's pretty badass. Mike Rowe knows who I am. That's pretty cool.
Well, people have always asked me about, do you believe in the paranormal? And I do, because I know of paranormal things that have occurred, and they come from sources that are people I trust, and there'd be no reason for them to lie about it. That said, I think there's a lot of people out there, whether it be on the ghost shows or the psychics or whatever, that are just phonies, that are just trying to capitalize on it. And that's one of the reasons why people don't buy into it. The idea that there are things out there that we don't know or understand, if you don't believe that, you're fucking crazy because we see it every day.
Well, it's kind of like, you look at those galaxies out there and they discover new galaxies. Okay, we cannot be the only ones out there. And that's what always got me is like, you afraid of ghosts? Is like, well, no, I fear the living more than I do the dead.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that really scares the hell out of me is alien life forms. Because, if something invades us, like, Independence Day or whatever, that movie got a lot of shit, but that was a good movie. Um, I mean, we won't be Democrat, Republican. We won't be American, Russian. We'll be fucking humans because, if yeah, I firmly believe that if there is an alien life form and if they can get here, they're going to be far superior to us and they're going to need something from us. Maybe our water. Maybe the good-looking men like me and you. Maybe they need us to go and populate, other planets.
Well, good luck with me. I think I'm beyond the pale with regard to that. I don't think I'll be seeding any new world at this point. Um, the thing about it is the whole thing with aliens and maybe invading. Let's be honest. I sit and watching TikTok and they're going to do this, they're going to do that. If they were going to do something, they could have done it 200 years ago. Time isn't the same. I think you say they're an advanced civilization, but you're applying to them the attitudes of we dumb fucks. Like, I want that. I'm going to go fight for it. I'm going to take it. And if you're an advanced civilization or intelligence, you probably don't need to do that. You probably have better options than putting your life at risk to
Yeah.
get something you want and or need. People will say that it's not so much aliens. What do you think about this? As somebody who's kind of into the alien thing, there's two other thoughts on that. Instead of coming from the sky, they're coming from the sea, which would be interesting because we don't know what's in the sea. We know
Yeah.
less about the sea than a lot of what we know in the sky. Or it's a different parallel universe. It's just bleeding over from one universe to another because we know apparently it's been proved that there are. The point is, there's so many fucking things we don't understand to try to sit and decide what it all means is ridiculous because it's beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, you talk about, parallel universes. A lot of the paranormal was, with that, a lot of what might come out to be is that there's not really ghosts. I think it's just past energy. Because you hear, a conversation from 100 years ago, we get EVPs on it. That like I've told my story before, how I got into ghost hunting and the paranormal was, hearing those two voices that were talking about the Civil War when it was like 1982, but you
Right.
couldn't, and it's just past energy. And you get either that on the video on the little tape recorder, or you can hear it in person. I mean, you've heard the voices like before, I mean, I've heard that before, like, like you hear something or you have deja vu. I mean, who knows to like in the alternate universes, both, ours could be, younger, thinner, richer, and full heads of hair. And it's like the what was that Super Friends where they had the who was the Superman? I'm talking about Super Friends, the cartoons. They had the evil Superman, and they had like the doppelgangers, but they were like his S was backwards, and I
Yeah.
forget his name. But talking about, about the oceans, it's funny growing up. I can always remember that Aquaman was always laughed at. No, you play with the fishes, that's all you do is hey. And after seeing the, Jason Momoa movie, fucking, he made that look badass, man. I think being
Yeah.
Aquaman would be kick ass. That's a great movie,
Yeah.
by the way. Especially if you get to hang out with Amber Heard, and Nicole Kidman. Win-win for me.
I always thought Amber Heard was the one of the sexiest women in the movies. And then when I saw that trial with Johnny Depp, I go, "Oh, that's a crazy bitch."
For some of us, Mike, that wouldn't be a deal
But
breaker.
it's a trade-off. It's a serious
Some of
trade-off.
us, it's not a deal breaker.
But when it comes to the parallel or not parallel universe, paranormal, I'm skeptical, but I believe about the potential and certain things. But I think I've told this before. I had experience of my own, not directly, but within my family, and it makes me feel confident that there's something there. I think I've told the story. My wife and I, when we were first married, we lived in an apartment for a while, and then we moved to a house. And this house was built by my wife's grandfather. Part of it was left to us in a will. Her grandmother passed away. She'd lived in it. She was divorced from her husband. She'd lived in it for 50 years. She passed away. And when the and my wife inherited like 1/5 of it. So we thought, well, we could just buy this because we already own 1/5 of it and just live there because it was a nice house. It was in a suburb. It was beautiful. It was big. And so we moved into this house, and there were some experiences had in that house, because her grandfather built it. Her grandmother lived in it for 50 years, and my wife and her grandmother were very close. There were experiences I never experienced one of them, but people in my family did. For example, um, there was a point, and I may have told the story, but my wife and my young son, he may have been 2 at the time, or maybe 3, and they were going through a book of photos.
Mm.
And he was pointing out, this is my cousin, that's dad, that's grandma, that's grandpa. He came to a picture of my wife's grandmother who had passed away before he was ever born. And we now live in her house. Came to the picture, and my son, 3 years old, points at the picture and says, "Oh, that's the lady that comes visit me all the time." Now, this 3 year old isn't lying and isn't trying to get clout on social media. He said that. In addition to that, he would say that when he was in his rooms, he'd hear somebody say the word Jerry, which makes no sense to you now. But my mother-in-law, who grew up in that house, her brother, who had been in the war and did other things, was named Jerry. So that's weird. And then my son would walk through the house and he'd hear somebody calling his name, but there'd be nobody there. And the last thing that happened is my son is an infant sleeping on the couch in a crib or something or a cradle. My wife is downstairs in the basement washing clothes while the baby's sleeping. There's a long steps and a very heavy door at the top of the steps. Just her and my son in the house. She hears the door open. Somebody yells down, yells her name, and then slams the door.
Oh,
Now, my wife, being a new mother, she didn't know what to do. She was scared shitless.
what?
So from that door, she could go to the garage and run out in the backyard. And as she's running out, standing in the backyard because she's scared because there's a ghost in the house, she realizes, fuck, my baby's still in there. So now she's got to run around the house, go back, check on the baby. But way to go, mom. Save me first, and we'll see if the kid survives. But those were all experiences. Nobody of those folks would ever lie about that, would never even think about it unless it actually occurred. So when you hear those types of things, there's got to be something to it.
There's a movie that Leslie Nielsen did. It was called Repossessed, and it was a takeoff on The Exorcist. And it's got a part where James Woods is playing a priest, and they're like doing the Exorcist part, where Linda Blair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, you got a priest and everything there. It's supposed to be man of God, no fear and stuff. And the demon starts talking and everything. And James Wood is playing a priest, and you hear him afterwards, "Fuck this!" and he runs out. I was like, yeah, that would be me. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that. There's a I almost said a cruise ship, but there's an aircraft carrier called the USS Lexington, and it's down in Corpus Christi, which is a couple hours down on the Gulf Coast. And one of the episodes we did for Ghost Lab was that one. And they have those in those aircraft carriers, those real heavy doors. They have those opening and closing on that thing, and we got that, I think, one on video of that happening. So I mean, I guess in the paranormal, they're not exactly wimpy ghost, out there. But we got an EVP one time, and this is why I talk about past energy. EVP said clear as day, shoot the plane. Well, the Japanese attacked the Lexington and stuff, and of course they had gunners going after them. And I just as I'm an agnostic. I can't call myself an atheist because I do think there is something out there, and there isn't. I don't believe the God of the Bible. I don't believe in that one. That's one, especially the one I was taught about. I totally reject that. But to each their own. But it there is a God. He has a hell of a sense of humor because I think he makes people because it's like what's that Bible? They were thought to be wise, but were made of fools. I mean, God's got a sense of humor because, I mean, he, of course, created man his own likeness, and we have senses of humor. I mean, not everybody. But, I mean, it's like you see one thing, we think about it, figure it out, and he gives you fucking something else over here. I'm like, what the fuck that come from? But, talking about, hearing stuff, my late grandmother, I may have told this story too. She died in 2008, and it was right around Halloween. I did a DJ gig when I used to do parties and stuff. And she came home and she was telling me she had this like wicked dream that her brother and sister, AC and Patsy, had passed away. She kept seeing them waiting for her. And I mean, I'm sorry if I'm like that and I see somebody that I know is dead and I see them, it's gonna freak me the fuck out too. And especially like, for both of us, if we see our dads, we know we're going to hell. We're on,
Yeah.
I see my dad's like,
Oh,
fuck.
fuck.
And she was saying she's having this dream where she's driving in a car and she's there and she sees Patsy and AC in the back, but she can't understand. She sees these two people in the car. She has no fucking idea who they are. She goes, what does this mean? And of course, I asked her, my mom, before my mom, she miscarried twins, boy and a girl. And I go, are they twins? She goes, yeah, they are. Could be your twins you miscarried. I mean, and that somehow gave her some peace, but it fucked me up. It's like, wow, you know what I mean? It's like As much as I say there's no, you say, oh, there's no heaven, there's no God. I mean, there's got to be some kind of afterlife. Why? And the only person that I've been around that didn't experience anybody around them when he's dying was my father. Everybody I've been around has seen visions of other people. I'd ask my dad that, you see anybody? Nope, nope. And my dad was I won't go there, but I always just wonder if, my grandma was a great woman. She took care of us, my dad didn't. And it's like that just really messed me up, especially at the time when he died in 15. I was into this ghost thing, and I saw most everybody I saw dying saw visions of somebody else. My dad was the only one that didn't. So it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. That always kind of freaked me out.
I had an experience that wasn't paranormal per se, but it was incredibly surreal and it kind of spiritually charged me up at the moment in a way I've never experienced before. I had a grandmother that I was very close to when I was growing up. I was the first grandchild, so I was essentially the favorite. Nobody's supposed to be the favorite grandchild, but my grandmother was pretty obvious with it.
Of
So
course.
we were always pretty close. And my grandfather had died, and she was doing okay for a while, and then she had to be put in a nursing home. And then over a period of time, while she was in the nursing home, she um, became non-communicative. It was hilarious when she was talking. I go in and I go, "Hey, Grandma, how you doing?" She goes, and she likes me now. She goes, "I'm doing well, but you're losing your hair." I said, "Well, I got a little hair here left up." She goes, "Oh, sure, a little off the hair there, big deal. You're going bald." I go, "Okay, Grandma, thanks a lot.
You're
You're
right.
in a nursing home. Shut the fuck up." Um, so anyway, she was up there for some time, and she kind of lingered for a long time. She got to be about 96 or 97 years of age, and she was in a place that was probably an hour and a half, 2 hours north of where I live. So we'd get up there when we could. We got a call from um, the nursing home and says, it looks like we're putting her in hospice. It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
She's the only person I've ever known after they put her in hospice. They say, man, she's good now. She can get out of hospice. I've never heard of somebody coming out of hospice. So the second time they did it, I thought, okay, she's a tough old lady, man. She's a buzzsaw. But they called me up and they said, look, she seems to be in the end stages of life. And this was a Monday. You need to get up here. And I said, man, I got two kids. I'm working. My wife's working. I can't get up there till like Saturday. I can't get there till Saturday. And neither could any of my brothers or sisters. But I'll definitely be there Saturday. So they didn't say the death was imminent, but we were at that stage. So I was hoping and praying that I could get there before she passed away. And so Saturday comes along. I call my brother and I call my sisters, and weirdly, none of them can do it. And I know they would do it. They would go up and see grandma if they could, but whatever reason it worked out, it was just me and my wife. Okay. So we get up there, we go into the room. There's grandmother, um, my grandmother laying there, non communicative. Her eyes are open, and I'm standing behind her, and my wife is standing looking at her face. And I'm talking to her just, about normal things, just talking about things. And my wife says it was weird. It could be just something natural, or I don't know. But she saw one tear go down down her face, and
Oh,
she
wow.
goes, you need to get around here and talk to her face." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to come around and talk to her face." And I said, "Would you do me a favor? Would you just go out of the room and just leave me and her in here for a second? Just leave us two here." So my wife goes out, and I'm sitting in front of my grandmother, and I'm looking at her, and I said, you've been hanging on here for a long time. You're not able to do the things you used to do. You can't be enjoying this at all. I know you, and you can't be enjoying this. Don't worry about us here. We got it covered. You did a great job in your life. And I'm getting kind of goosebumps about it now. I'm getting, uh, we got it covered here, Grandma. We're going to cover this, and it's time to go see Grandpa. It's okay. You can go. And as I'm sitting there, within 15 seconds of me saying that, I see her eyes kind of go blank.
Oh, wow.
My wife comes in. I said, I think she passed. She goes, no, she didn't pass. So I go out to, thinking she's on some kind of, some kind of technical thing that would see whether she's alive or not. And I go out to the nurses and um, I say, do you have something that keeps track of my grandmother's heartbeat and all that stuff out here? She goes, no, no, but we just checked her. I said, could you check her again? Because I really get the sense she just passed. They go, that's not possible. We saw her 10 minutes ago before you walked in the door. We just walked out of her room. I said, please just check her. So they come in, a couple nurses come in and sit down and look at her and take her pulse and check all this stuff. And they look at me weirdly and they go, you're right. She passed.
No.
And the thing about it is when that all happened, I'm not somebody who gets shaken up by things, but when that happened, the whole vibe of the room, my whole feeling of what was going on was just totally different than I've ever experienced before.
You know,
So when people ask me about that, go, oh, that's so sad. I go, it's not really sad because this woman was going to die anyway. But what I experienced in that moment was truly eye opening and really set a different tone in my head as I watched her go through this. I'd always heard the story, just tell them it's okay to go and they'll go. I go, yeah, right. But I did that and it fucking worked. And everything was better off in the long run. She wouldn't want to be stuck in a bed in a hospital all this time. But that was a weird experience, not paranormal by any sense. She hasn't come to visit me since. But that moment in time really kind of didn't shake me up. It didn't make me sad. It actually made me feel a lot better. Weird.
yeah, I mean, I was there when my mom's mom died and when my dad died. And I'd like to think that, my mom's mom, she had a rough life. She lived through the Depression. They were sharecropper kids, I mean, she had to be the oldest. She was the oldest, so she was the one that took care of everybody. Well, kind of that too. We told her, I mean, she didn't die like your grandmother did, but you can go or whatever, they're waiting for you. And I always like to think that, there is, kind of, I don't know if I ever talked about the movie Defending Your Life. It's with Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks.
No.
It's about how, yeah, I've been recommending it to people and they like it. It's about how they die and how their life is judged. And Meryl Streep lives this extraordinary life, and Albert Brooks, you know him, he just had a lot of what ifs and, didn't take chances and that stuff. And it's about the afterlife and everything. And it's like how you go on to, do you go back to this life, or do you go on to the next life? And I know it's Hollywood and everything, but I like to kind of think life's that way. I mean, you kind of think about the people, maybe the people that were like, Charles Manson and, the mass murderers, maybe they're like young souls, so to speak, that,
Yeah.
did a lot of damage to a lot of people and they, didn't learn their lesson. So they have to, come back to this life in reincarnation. And I always think about my dad that way, that my dad was a prick. I talked about that before. And he was just not a very happy person, but he had shit in his life and I can see what influenced him. His brothers aren't that way, but I like to think about him. It's about 10 years old. I like to think that maybe he's some 10-year-old kid somewhere that, is like maybe happier, maybe in a better life. And you have instances like my brother, he died at 33, and why he died, I'll never fucking know. And just to think that's the only life he has at 33. I mean, he died at 33. Shit, the stuff I was doing at 33. I mean, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke. I did all the above.
Yeah.
But you kind of think about, and like Sharon Tate, these people that, die tragically and didn't have and I think what happened to Sharon Tate's one of the worst things in history. I mean, every time I think about that woman, I mean, she's not only gorgeous, but the way, her and her unborn baby, you got to think that those two souls, and I do believe in a soul, especially you have one on the show every once in a while. And
Old soul. Oh.
yeah, and that's why you get the thing old soul, because you got people that are like, they're much older than what they are physically. I mean, I think I'm one. because I loved the music before. A lot of my friends, they just like the new stuff. And I just got to think that comes from somewhere. But it's called Defending Your Life, Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep's always great. Albert Brooks is really good. But one of the judges on that fucking show, and this would be my luck. You know, one of the judges was Rip Torn. It's like, fuck, I'm
Oh,
fucked.
wow.
So I mean, he was like, "Oh well," I think it was. I don't know if he's his judge, his lawyer, but like Albert Brooks was going to say something. Well, I don't know. It's I guess you're just kind of screwed. I'm like, it's just about Albert Brooks just never achieved anything, but Meryl Streep had all her shit together, so she was going on to the next one. But Albert Brooks, was stuck having to go back, and of course he didn't want to go back. So, but if you've ever seen it, it's called Defend Your Life. But I think there's something to reincarnation because it's like, talking about your son seeing that picture. I mean, they got kids on TV that they have these birthmarks and it's like how they were killed. I got one on my head. I could have been shot in the head in my previous life. Who knows? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
there's got to be something to that. I think there's something to reincarnation, but it's like anything else, it's kind of hard to prove it until you get there.
Well, I wonder about that sometime because my grandmother was one of these kind of buzzsaw personalities, kind of in your face, not shy at all. And I start thinking about it, and I start thinking about my granddaughter, kind of a buzzsaw, kind of
Yeah.
in your face, not shy at all. You have to wonder. You have to wonder what's going on. I know I my brother and my grandfather had a couple near death experiences. My grandfather, he was born in 1911, so he must have been this maybe late 20s, early 30s. He gets on a streetcar to go to have his appendix out. He does that. He has it done. Then he gets back on a car and goes home. It's a much different era, the
Oh yeah.
30s. Um, but something happens and he bleeds out and he's technically dead for a minute.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Well, what did you see?" And he said, "I didn't see much. I just saw a lot of colors, vibrant colors, some colors I never recognized." And that's all he ever said about it. He never went into detail. My brother, on the other hand, oddly enough, he had his appendix out, and it was the 80s or 90s, and the 80s, and whatever this doctor fucked up, punctured his bowel. He ended up getting peritonitis, and then it went on to gas gangrene. It was really bad. I remember sitting in a hospital waiting room and having the doctor tell me, my brother, or me, my father, my mother, and my sisters that he's got a 2% chance of living. And he didn't technically die, but he was really out of it for a long time, and it took a long time to recover. And he swears at this point that he has no fear of dying because while in that space, either in a coma, induced or otherwise, he got a sense of what's out there and that there are other things out there. So he has a whole different perspective of what death is about. And because I know him and I know he wouldn't lie about that shit, it gives me some comfort in knowing that, the way I look at it, I'm 65 at this point. I've uh, I've had a good run. If it all ends tomorrow, at least I got the things I wanted accomplished. And people always say, "Well, what if you die and there's nothing?" Well, so what? There's nothing. It's not like you know. And if
Well,
there is something, even better.
well, you were technically dead before you were alive. I mean, I had an ex-girlfriend that
True.
used to, you're dead a lot longer than you are alive. But be careful, Mike. Don't be saying that, man. Because I saw an interview with Ozzy. It's like, if it all gone tomorrow, I'd be a happy guy. And he died like, 2 days later. So don't leave us, Mike. We need you around, man. So
No, I got to live long enough to
you did.
watch my grandkids grow up a bit, and I'm 65. I meet a lot of people who are 65, and a lot of them seem infirmed or convincing themselves that they're elderly. And maybe I am elderly, but my mind and my heart is much younger. So I don't. I always tell people when I turned 50 years old, there was a transition in my life. If I was under 50 and I fell asleep on the couch or in a chair, people go, "Oh, you lazy ass, get up, get up." And I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, so it isn't unusual that I was falling asleep. But once I hit 50 and I fell asleep in the chair. They didn't say, "Get up, you lazy ass." They go, "Dad, you okay? You still alive?"
I had that with I had that with one of my pups. She's 13 and I've been treating her. She has Cushing's disease, which is like a thing where your cortisone levels get up. So I've been, and the medicine she's on, it knocks her out. And I have to sometimes like, are you awake? You know what I mean? And I think she's a little bit hard of hearing because she doesn't hear stuff. So she's really dead asleep. But yeah, I know we're gonna need to wrap this up pretty soon, but the thing that I would say, if you're into horror movies and stuff, I think I would recommend The Changeling. I would recommend The Others. I would recommend The Sixth Sense, and I gotta go with Ghostbusters because that's just, a lot of fucking fun. It's got Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and,
The
Slimer.
original, the
Yeah,
original, right?
they did they did the remake, not with the girls, but they did a one Afterlife, I guess, a few years ago. Not the one. I hear the one with the girls is pretty good, but there was one done afterwards, and it had Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd in it, and Ernie Hudson, and man, that was and I they brought back what's his name, the guy that passed away in real life. They brought him back, and he was like fighting a ghost, and to be a kid in the 80s, I can remember reading comic books and seeing Ghostbusters being advertised. Like, what the hell is this shit? When you see stuff in the movies out and it's iconic like that, it's like, fuck, I remember when that was advertised. But yeah, there's a there is a cameo in Ghostbusters, and if you get to watch it, um, there's a cameo in Ghostbusters that a lot of guys probably saw a lot of his other movies. You knew who that was?
Oh,
Ron Jeremy. He makes an appearance in Ghostbusters when they're looking at the city. He has a cameo in it, and it's
yeah.
like, hey,
He well,
that
well. It
guy
turns
from his
out
other work, whatever. But
turns out he is horrifying. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
when I think about horror movies, for me, it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
We had a show on at night on Friday nights called Creature Feature.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy would come out and there'd be a casket there and dry ice and smoky and shit. And then they play old movies, old horror movies. And when I was growing up and I was a kid, whenever Halloween came along, I only wanted to be one thing because it was my favorite monster because I just assumed this monster was the toughest. You got Dracula and you got the werewolf and stuff, but nobody beats Frankenstein. And on all these reruns on TV, I would see the Frankenstein movies. And you remember with the one where he's afraid of fire and he throws the girl in the lake. And
That's a little, yeah, the little girl.
yeah, I just thought Frankenstein was the coolest. So whenever there would be two things going. If we had time, Mom would go out to the local department store and get me the cheap ass Frankenstein costume, which was basically a a mask, a paper mask with the smock that wrapped around you to kind of make you look like Frankenstein. I would do that. Or if she got lazy, she would just take a sheet and cut some holes in it and say, "Go be a fucking ghost."
How you do that nowadays? I think you're in the KKK, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little problematic. And I'm wondering what my grandkids are going to be when they go out there. And I'm glad to hear my 4-month-old grandchild is going to be a chicken, which is interesting because when my son, his father, was about that age, he was a duck. So that's right in line, right in the process. My granddaughter, I thought would be something scary, and I think she's going to be like Raggedy Ann or something very
Still the
benign.
thing, huh? Raggedy.
Uh,
That's my generation. God, I remember the 70s, probably before the
yeah,
70s.
well, yeah, and
He,
and and it's funny. Whenever I talk to my granddaughter, I may have told this story too. She has nightmares from time to time, and why I don't know. A lot of kids have nightmares. So I'm in the car, and my wife is talking to her about these nightmares. She goes, "Oh, Grandma, it's so weird. I don't even know." And she's 5. It's so weird. I don't even know if I can explain it to you. And I say, "Honey, well, just tell us what the basic idea of it." And she looks at me and she goes, "Grandpa, don't even get me started. Don't get me started. I said, okay, honey. I said, what you need to do is you need to start thinking about good things. Oh, she says, I do. She do. I go, what do you think about? She goes, she says, I think about being a fairy, riding a unicorn, jumping over a rainbow. And I go, I don't know where the fuck you came that up with that with, but that's good. If that works for you, girl, you go.
Yeah, it's funny talking about nightmares. I knew I was getting old because I think my favorite monster kind of genre is zombies. Start with, George Romero with Night of the Living Dead and the Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. And there was a show, I think that ended. It was called Walking Dead, and it would always come on in the Sunday nights. And one thing you learn from The Walking Dead is that the zombies aren't as bad as the people and who are living. But I motherfucking started having nightmares because I'd watch it Sunday night and fucking I'd have nightmares that they're fucking chasing me and shit. And I was in my 40s and shit. And I was like, how am I gonna fucking start recording that shit? I can't watch before I go to bed. And so it's like that kind of ended me. But you talk about Frankenstein. How great was, that character was, Boris Karloff
It was
and
awesome.
Fred Gwynn that played him, Herman Munster, and
Yeah.
can't fucking forget Frankenberry. But I
Yep.
think one of the greatest movies and the saddest movies, and as a single guy, we've all gone through this, is Bride of fucking Frankenstein. There you are,
Yeah.
you get a fucking woman made for you, and she still fucking rejects you. I mean, you can't fucking win sometimes, man. I mean, Bride of Frankenstein's great. Bela Lugosi's the goat of Dracula, if you ask me. I mean, they ripped off Nosferatu, but I mean, Dracula. You watch those old Universal, they were talking about remaking those. No, I mean, there's just some shit you should. And there's been some. I mean, some Dracula movies were good, but I mean, they need to leave that shit alone. And I know there's been so many instances, and I know I sound like get off my lawn, so to speak, but leave this shit alone. Don't remake those, And they've done that with the Scream movies, and it's like it's never as good as the original, in my opinion.
The one exception of a good movie that was a shitty movie that I enjoyed when you talk about Dracula in the 70s when they came up with Blackula.
Yeah.
That was such a shitty movie. It was a good movie.
I love the Christopher Lee. That's like my Dracula because that's what I grew up with. And when he was in
Oh,
Star
yeah.
Wars, like, that was just a wet dream for me as a freaking Gen Xer. I mean, people and they always say, "Well, he's the worst Dracula." It's like, fuck no. Christopher Lee is like Roger Moore, dude. That's ours. Christopher Lee's our Dracula and Roger Moore's our Bond. So don't give me any shit about that. So, well, Mike, I think we've talked about this monster and ghost shit to the ground. So I guess it's about time to wrap it up. What do you say?
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up. We chewed up a full hour and then some. We've done our job. We're finished our work here.
And next week we'll talk about unicorns and jumping over rainbows, man. So it's
Jumping
like,
over rainbow. You know what I want to talk about? You know what
oh,
my favorite topic is?
uh,
Believe it or not, and there's so much to talk about. And I just thought about it here, is the whole premise, the movies, the internet with regards to time travel. I've
oh,
always been intrigued by time travel. So maybe we'll talk about that next time.
you better be careful because I can go 3 hours on that fucking shit. Because that's a wormhole I like to go down. I mean that's like my favorite thing because that's just something that it started with Back to the Future. It's like great Scott, Marty. It's just like the great. And I'll end it on this. There's a college humor thing that they do Back to the Future where he sends Marty back to the future or back to the past, and it's like, well, you got to stop. You got to stop. You got to stop your mother. You got to get her to marry your father, or you won't exist, right? So there's that part in the car where they're making out, and she starts kissing him. It's like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's like when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother. That's how it goes in the movie, right? So she says, "Ah, fuck it," and they ended up doing it. And he's like, "Back, what? You had sex with your mother?" The Christopher Lloyd star and stuff like that. I gotta send you back again to stop that from happening. So he sends Marty back again. So he goes there and it's like him and his mom making out. Marty, you gotta stop. And then the mom sees, oh, there's two of you, and it ends like there. So it's like, yeah, you just that if you haven't seen it, it's on College Humor. It's a Back to the Future parody. But yeah, Back to the Future is great. Michael J. Fox is great. Christopher Lloyd. But yeah, I think next week we'll dive into time travel. But
That
I,
sounds good.
yeah,
We can start it out with the 60s TV show that nobody's probably heard of unless they're my age, and it was The Time Tunnel.
yep,
That was a 60s TV show that lasted a year, but we thought it was cool as fuck.
yeah.
And
There's a lot of good shows. Twilight Zone does a lot of that shit. I mean, it's just, I mean, I think now Hollywood's guilty of like making all these remakes. You don't have a Rod Sterling out there anymore. You don't have a, Kit Hitchcock, even though Hitchcock was a freak. So, I mean, yeah, we'll talk time travel and we'll wrap it up now and till next week. Peace out,
till
people.
next week, we will see you then. Thanks for joining us.